Hello and welcome to another chapter of Watch Out for the Lucky. Chapter 5. Green opened his eyes slowly, blinking away sleep. He felt warm, which wasn't too particularly uncommon when he woke up, but it was also soft, which was distinctly not a feature that his beat-up old couch typically offered. Sluggishly, he flipped over onto his back, not the most comfortable position with wings, and looked at the ceiling, turning his head, eyes catching on the decor of the room he was in. Lots of white and purple. A dresser was against the wall directly across from the foot of the bed, with a TV mounted on the wall above it. Currently, it was off. The ceiling was tall, painted white, with a small fancy light hanging over the bed, also correctly off. Up against the wall, his bed was posted up against were heavy drapes that cut off his view of the outside. It shrouded the room in light shadows. Still, though, the sunlight persisted in beams of light coming from under the mauve-colored curtains. The walls were painted lilac in color with basic mass-printed art hung up aesthetically. Confused, Green sat up, causing the overly soft blankets to pile around his bare waist. Looking down, he saw a bed of white sheets and comforters, with a few plum and periwinkle fuzzy blankets tossed over. The carpet was sheer white with circular rug matching the drapes centered under the bed. His bow and quiver was leaned neatly against his bedside table within arm's reach. Slowly, the confusion on Green's face was overtaken by a wide smile. Oh, that wasn't a dream. That wasn't a dream! Looking to his right, Green caught sight of the two boxes he had brought from his old apartment to the late afternoon before. He had set them against the wall next to the door before promptly diving into the formerly neat bed, forming the blankets into a semi-nest-like shape, before passing out, before even touring the flat he had moved into. After Starvoid had offered him the job, Green stood up shakily. He remembers how his hands shook while putting his arrows away and pulling his bow over his head. Shaking his head slightly, he squared his shoulders and walked through the door as Starvoid stepped to the side, letting him pass. The heroes were all still crowded around the window, but had shifted to watch as Green walked through. But none of them said a word. Green paused to look over them all. Some had wide eyes with slightly dropped jaws, while others looked pale. A few had all three. Hawkeye was in front of them all, closest to Green, and even though he still had the dark sunglasses on, Green got the impression that he was speechless. Sitting in his bed now, Green smirks at the idea that the Hawkeye could ever be truly speechless. Tilting his head to the side, Green furrowed his eyebrows. Why was everyone so tense? Did he just barely pass or something? Surely this was just one of the many trials they had seen that day. Maybe they were tired. Maybe they weren't expecting so much action or something. Hawkeye opened his mouth as he were about to say something, but he paused, as if searching for his words. When he came up with nothing, he huffed and crossed his arms over his chest, looking away. Green felt Starvoid place a hand onto his shoulder then, looking away from Hawkeye and over his shoulder to the masked man. Green saw him shifting slightly in place, swaying from foot to foot with poorly hidden anxiety. Why was everyone acting so weird? He had just survived. Shouldn't they be celebrating? Clearing his throat quietly, Starvoid addressed Green. It would be an asset to have you on the team, Pesky Bird. You may take a few days to decide, but I ask that you please highly consider joining. You would be... If I say yes right now, how quickly could I move into the tower? Green interrupted Starvoid. Whatever was happening here could wait. Green was tired and already been offered the job. No point in drawing this out when he already knew his response. Taken aback, Starvoid dropped his hand from Green's shoulder. Green turned around to face Starvoid properly. Well, I don't see why it wouldn't be as soon as you like. He lifted his head as looking to the other heroes before looking down at Green. There's just some paperwork to do, but there's already a few flats ready, so I assume you'll be paired up with Hawkeye, so you'll be room next to him. And if you have any things you need moved, we can send someone out to pack them for you. Not necessary. How about I grab my things and come back in an hour? That way you can do your paperwork and I can get my stuff here, Green suggested. Starvoid hesitated for a moment before agreeing and leading Green to the exit. After grabbing his stuff, signing a few documents, and being given a few temporary passes, Green was led to his new apartment flat. Starvoid had told Green that someone would be over in the morning to give him an official tour of the building. He also said if Green needed anything, just across the hall was Hawkeye. Green had bent to the side to look around Starvoid, who had been standing in the doorway to peek at Hawkeye's door. Surprisingly, the only signifier that it was his place was a golden plaque of his name etched into it. Green feels slightly disappointed, expecting something more comical and brash like the hero himself. Damn. Green pulls himself from the memories of the night before, shaking his head to the side to side, pulling himself out of his lackluster nest. Feet planted on the cozy carpet, he hoisted himself up, letting the sheets fall away. Letting out a groan, he raised his arms, stretching his back and wings, which flared out, framing the ornate hanging light. Relaxing his body, he realized he felt kinda gross. When he fell into bed yesterday, he only removed his shirt and boots, leaving the rest of the clothes he had been wearing during the addition on. Glancing down at the pristine white bedside table, there was an alarm clock currently displaying 8:23 a.m. Whoa, he hasn't woken up that early in years. He'd normally sleep all day and go out at night patrolling. Being a vigilante was a full-time job after all, and he tried to think of it more like a night shift. Hopefully, with being a legal hero, he can patrol during the day now. Green shuffled forward to the boxes stacked by the door. Pulling off the top box labeled taxes, it was just a box full of random sentimental things he kept around. He labeled it as taxes so none of the heroes would judge him when he walked into the building. Everyone has taxes. Not everyone has a stuffed pigeon named Moon. Green placed it next to the bottom box labeled clothes. This box was half empty. He didn't own much. Didn't need much. Pulling out a new set of clothes, he turned to the door opposite of the boxes. Walking over and opening the door, Green was greeted with a huge bathroom, boasting both a shower stall and jetted bathtub. A two-bowl sink with a toilet and shelving at the end. It was fully furnished with toothbrushes, toothpaste, towels, toilet paper, and when Green opened the drawers under the sink, razors, pads, and other feminine products, like makeup wipes and brushes. Green scoffed, as if he wouldn't need a brush and makeup wipes. Do they even know who he is? He literally slept in yesterday's makeup, and his bun was looking extra messy, and not in an aesthetic way. Well, logically, he knew that the heroes didn't know who would be accepted into the association, but there was no need to hide these products under the sink as if they were dirty. Sighing, Green took the wipes and brush, setting them on the sink counter. He reached his arms up, untying his hair, letting it fall just over his shoulders. He lazily used a few makeup wipes to take off the smudged eyeliner and mascara he was wearing. Turning to the shower, Green awkwardly fussed with each knob until he figured out which one turned the hot water. When it was nice and warm, Green took off the rest of his clothes and threw them into an empty basket by the door, then hopped into the shower. He practically melted. Usually his showers were cold, so this was a nice change of pace. There were 2 different kinds of shampoo, conditioner, and body wash. Reading the label of each, one was supposed to smell like Fireside Brawl, while the other one was meant to smell like Strawberry Sunshine. Smelling them both, he noticed that Fireside Brawl smells distinctly masculine and musty, while Strawberry Sunshine was actually nice. Needless to say, he would be smelling like sunshine, thank you very much. After he had finished up, he dried off, redressed, and brushed out his hair, pulling into a low bun at the base of his skull. He lazily fixed a few of the out-of-place feathers, pulling the ones that were ready and tossing them into the trash next to the toilet. Now he feels much better. Looking in the mirror, Green makes sure he looks presentable. Today didn't feel much like a makeup day, so he just made sure his outfit was relatively nice. A black long-sleeve shirt tucked into black loose pants. A rope belt cinched them at the waist, also black. Yes, his signature look, black on black, 'cause that's what he could afford. Classic. Twisting to look at his backside, he made sure the hole for his wings was clipped correctly. He wasn't sure if this tour would involve a lot of movement, but just in case he wanted to be prepared. All of his clothes were adapted to fit his wings well, so he would have no issue flying at the drop of a hat. Leaving the bathroom, Green continued to explore the rest of the flat. Directly out of his bathroom, Green sees a large kitchen with the front door he had entered from the afternoon previous next to it. The kitchen looked to be stocked, if the bananas and apples sitting on the counter meant anything. It was completely furnished with a large fridge, oven, stove, and plenty of little gadgets like a toaster sitting across the counters. A bar counter separated the kitchen from the connecting living room. Looking up, he sees extremely tall ceilings with joists stretching from each side of the wall. Light fixtures were hanging from them over a large L-shaped white couch. A coffee table centered on the mulberry-colored eye-shaped rug the couch also sat on. The couches were facing an electric fireplace with a wide TV mounted above. Green walks over to the couch, running his hand across the cushions, testing the plushness of it. It's much to be expected, and very soft. The whole place is pretty much what Green expected. It all screamed staged, as if it was pulled straight from the Decorate Like a Hero magazine, filled with shades of purple and pure white, the colors of the Hero Association and Hero Tower. Any small details like outlet rims and fixtures were plated in fox gold. Faux gold. Looking up from the couch, Green noticed light seeping from some large curtains stretching the width of the whole wall. Assuming there was a window behind the huge drapes, Green grabs them and tosses them only to be stunned. Where Green expected a few windows or possibly some French doors, he was met with a wall completely made of glass. A large window from floor to ceiling with 2 glass doors in the center leading out to a roofed balcony. Excited, Green opened the doors, stepping out in the cool morning air. He placed his hands on the railing, leaning over looking at the city. He could see everything from here, or at least it felt like it. Green breathed in deep, the fresh air filling his lungs. He smiled widely while scanning over the city. This was nice. He'll be the first to admit things were moving a little fast. This time yesterday, he was getting ready for the audition. And now, here he was, moved into the hero tower, awaiting his first official day as a hero. Or, well, hero sidekick. He supposed he wasn't expecting the heroes to be accommodating this quickly. Sighing, he drops his head to look over the cars driving under him. He can't forget his original objective, but the perks of this job were quite something. He can't remember a time he felt this peaceful and well rested. His wings fluttered in jealousy of the wind. What he wouldn't give to go on a listless flight in the morning breeze. Alas, he can't indulge his avian instincts like that. At least he'd be ridiculed. He's surprised he even made a nest last night. He must have been more tired than he thought. A knock from behind him interrupted his idle morning. Sighing for a final time, he pushed off the railing, walking back into his new flat. Peace can't last forever after all, and jobs require actually working. Lame. Opening his door, Green is greeted with a familiar black, blue, and orange suited man. Hawkeye stands with his hands still raised as if he's about to knock again. His face is set in a dazzling bright smile that doesn't make it to his eyes. Standing next to Hawkeye is a shorter, thicker man in a blue shirt with a white lab coat. He has black trimmed hair and thick rimmed glasses. There is a lanyard around his neck with a badge attached, but it's flipped over, so Green can't read a name. The man is also completely ignoring his surroundings, furiously writing on a clipboard with a solid stack of paper clipped to it. Green looks back up to Hawkeye, who had dropped his arm, and is now bouncing back and forth, seemingly excited. You ready for this tour? You ready for the tour, pesky bird? He asks. Though he knew Hawkeye was putting on an act. Green rolled his eyes. Of course. Just let me get some shoes and I'll be all good. Green walks away, leaving the door open. His boots were not far, and after zipping them up, he meets the two outside his door, shutting it softly. Finally, the man with the clipboard addresses Green, though still not looking away from his papers. Hello. My name is Cub, and I am the public relations manager for Hawkeye and Now You. He lifts a few papers, squints at his contents, looks up to Green, then back down. He scribbles something down before looking back up. Green folds his wings close as Cub rakes his eyes over his body. Slowly he circles Green silently, every once in a while scribbling something down. Those wings are real, correct? Cub asked in a way that didn't sound like a question, more like a happy observation. Yes, Green responds. He knows many people don't believe they are real, but at this point it should be pretty obvious. Green nervously looks over at Hawkeye, who is leaning against the opposite wall, checking his nails, looking happily unfazed. Cub finishes his scan by walking back to Green's front, then leaning in close to his face. Green leans back as he gets closer. Do you wear contacts or glasses? He asks, still scanning Green's face with scrutiny. No? Why were you wearing makeup yesterday, but not now? Why? He pulls back, tapping his pen on his papers. Didn't feel like it? Alright, but you know how to apply makeup. Yes? Green replies, tilting his head. Why would he wear it if he didn't know how to apply it? Nodding his head, he leans away from Green. Glancing down, Green sees Cub's clipboard, which has a few upside-down pictures compiled of himself in the hallway from yesterday. There were multiple pen marks circling parts of him with illegible writing next to them. He wasn't aware there had been cameras in that hallway while he had been waiting. He supposed that the receptionist wasn't lying when she said the audition had begun at that moment. I can work with this, Cub said suddenly, causing Green to snap his head away from his snooping. All right, Both of you come to my office after the tour, please. And with that, he turns away from Green and Hawkeye. He strides down the hallway, stopping halfway down his tracks. And Scar, be nice to him. Disappearing around a bend, still not looking up from his clipboard. Hawkeye looks up from his nails to Cub, scoffing, but Cub is gone before he strings a sentence together. Confused, Green stands back up straight, smoothing his clothes down. Even though they weren't much ruffled, he feels weirdly violated from being looked over like that. What was that about? And what about a scar? Green asks, putting his hands in his pockets and turning to face Hawkeye. Hawkeye huffs in what could be called a laugh before dropping his arms to his side. He shrugs his shoulders before turning down the way Cub went, pushing off the wall. Getting the hint, Green follows. Well, first of all, you are now the official sidekick for the most well-known, hottest, and bestest hero, Hawkeye said dramatically, throwing his arms out to his side, narrowly missing Green, who let out a squawk as he dodged. Huh. Funny. I didn't know I was going to be Tech's sidekick. That's cool, though. Green quit, smiling cheekily. Hawkeye dropped his jaw on the fence, pointing to himself. No! Me! Green threw his head back, cackling at Hawkeye's dramatics. He leaned his hands against the wall to help support himself as he laughed. Having to stop walking to catch his breath, Hawkeye pauses his walking to huff as he watches Green with his arms crossed tapping. As he watches Green with his arms crossed, tapping his foot. When Green raises his hand to wipe away a few tears, he saw Hawkeye was smirking with soft eyes. But when he noticed Green was looking this way, he threw on a grimace, turning his head away. Interesting. I always did think your name made you sound a bit like a prick. Good to know you actually are one. Humble, too. Green laughed as Hawkeye huffed, rolling his eyes. Still giggling quietly, Green reclaimed his composure, continuing the walk down the hall. Hawkeye sided up next to him, clearing his throat, then continued to speak. Anyways, he started pointedly, now that you are my partner in not crime, Cub just wants to find a way to make you marketable. Marketable? Green questions as they stop in front of an elevator. Hawkeye presses the button as they both wait for its arrival. Well, yeah. I'm on the front page of every magazine. I deliver press conferences twice a week. Every news station has an hour dedicated to all the good deeds I've done. The elevator dings, opening, prompting both of them to walk in. Hawkeye presses the lowest level button, then presses his thumb on a scanner next to the emergency button. The screen turns green and the doors close. He looks down at Green with boredom in his eyes. And now you just signed up for that as well. Oh. Green looks down at his feet as the elevator starts to move. He didn't think about this aspect as hard as he probably should have. Are you saying I'm gonna be a celebrity? Green asked quietly. Hawkeye looked at him like he was insane, tilting his head with his eyebrows raised, as if what Green said was ridiculous. Of course you are. Or, well, Cub will make you one. You won't with the way you look now. Disregarding the insult, Green shook his head. I didn't think of this when I auditioned, he breathed. How did you... What do you mean? Almost everyone in line was trying to be my sidekick for fame. Are you telling me you were just there to become a hero? Well, yes. I am... Will I have to do all that? The press and stuff? He asks nervously. Hawkeye looks incredulous, staring Green down like he's trying to look for something. Seemingly not finding it, he scoffs, shaking his head, turning away from Green. Ah, the price of fame as a hero. Yes, you will have to come with me and be amicable and likable. I know that must be hard for you. Green opens his mouth to respond before he's interrupted by the ding of the elevator. The doors slide open and Hawkeye hops out without waiting. The hallway is colored much like everything else in the Hero Tower. White walls, purple rolled out carpets running the whole length of the corridor. There are a few doors lining the hallway, but Hawkeye walks past them, continuing forward. We can continue this later. Let's just get on with the tour. Hawkeye continues to walk away as he speaks, biting Green to follow. Green walks next to Hawkeye with his head up, but his mind somewhere else. While he knew that becoming Hawkeye's sidekick would probably come with some media attention, he now realizes he didn't completely think this whole operation through. Twice a week, public appearances, magazine headlines, paparazzi following his every move. All of that for maybe a few hours of archive access? He should have applied for a desk job. Too late now, he supposes. He feels a bit dumb, really. He was a vigilante who helped people first and foremost, but getting noticed by the Hero Association was also a main factor. He didn't want to become famous. If he did, he would have just come out with a name and did some more high-profile vigilante business. Shown off his wings a bit, he'd probably have a fan base at some point. But he stayed under the radar for a reason. He had no use for fame, and now he just threw that all away for a sidekick job. Ugh, great. Shaking his hands out by his sides, Green purposefully pushes the thoughts out of his head for a later freak out. He could deal with all that later, preferably when he's alone. Trying to come up with a new train of thought, he thinks back to what Cub had said as he left, Green alone with Hawkeye. Looking over to Hawkeye, Green's eyes catch on the multiple scars that leather his face and exposed neck and arms. Some of them looked deep and old, while others were superficial and thin. Tilting his head, Green was trying to wrap his head around what Cup had said. Why did Cup call you that? Scar, I mean. Doesn't it seem very nice from a PR guy? He asks, pursing his lips. Hawkeye threw his head back with a bark of laughter. That's my name. My real name. Not one of the many the media likes to guess. I swear, if one more fangirl yells Larry when they see me, I'm gonna quit. Do I even look like a Larry? I don't think so. He rants. Shouldn't you not be telling me this? Green asks, confused, which prompts Hawkeye, or Scar, to look over at him with equally confused expression. Why not? We're going to be hanging out with each other a lot more. You were going to learn it one way or another. That being said, Mr. Secrets. He flips around while he's talking, walking backwards facing Green. And, well, usually he would find this dangerous. Green finds that it would be much funnier if he falls, so he lets him. I know Pesky Bird isn't your real name, or a vigilante name, so what is it, huh? Green smiles, shaking his head as he rolls his eyes, debating on what to say. He doesn't want to give out his real name, but Pesky Bird was a bit of a mouthful. Nor did he want people to continuously call him Pesky all day. But Scar did have a point. They might as well get to know each other a bit if they now had to spend so much time together. My name is Green, he says, but as the name catches Scar's ears, he trips over his feet, falling flat onto the ground. Rolling onto his side with a groan, Green laughs at his misfortune. What was that? There wasn't even a fold in the carpet, he giggles. It's nothing. I just tripped. I guess, Scar says softly. Green stops laughing in that moment, sensing something is actually amiss. He takes a hesitant step towards the man on the ground, but is stopped when Green speaks again. Anyways, I trip over myself all the time. Let's actually take that tour. Scar pushes himself off the ground with a grand smile brushing off invisible dust. Green feels slightly unsettled at the complete 180 degrees in his demeanor. Not only had he already stopped laughing, but Scar completely changed the topic, walking away with a pep in his step, as if nothing had even happened. How odd. Catching up with Scar, Green listens as he explains with enthusiasm where some of the doors and connected hallways go. Now, a few were just random offices and old storage rooms Green had no interest in. At the end of the long hall, they were greeted with tall grand doors. They have the Hero Association logo on each door creepily. In Green's opinion, watching them as Scar reaches to open the doors. This is our training room. It's basically our place to spar and hone our skill. Every hero has a little section made for their certain ability, which is why... He paused as he moved to the side, letting Green walk into the room. This place is huge. Green thought huge was still an understatement. It was a whole warehouse, to maybe three airplane hangars all had together. It had 2 whole tennis and basketball courts, a complete gymnastics setup, weights, and other gym equipment lined the walls. Hanging from the impossibly tall ceiling were hoops of various sizes. Green fought the small shiver that ran through his wings, remembering the events of yesterday. Maybe the smaller hoops could be for future Green. With pillars that stretched from ground to ceiling, with tight ropes that bridged them. On the floor, there were yards and yards of tape, sectioning off certain areas. Some were actually walled off, while others were open, empty spaces. There had to be at least 30 separate spaces, each with different things in the sectioned off spaces. There were other heroes training in many different places. Some were in what Green assumed to be their designated sections, while others were using the community training equipment. None of them even turned their heads when a Hawkeye opened the door, keeping their heads down while working out. It was almost too much to look at. Everywhere he turned, there was something new to see. He felt his wings flutter softly when his eyes caught on how at the very top of the ceiling there were beams that connected the pillars, keeping the roof from collapsing. If Green had to guess, they were very far underground. It is the only way having an open space this huge, if wasn't a well-known fact of the Hero Tower. What a perfect place to perch. Wait, no. Shaking his head, Green looked at Hawkeye, who was looking at him smiling. Upon being caught, he started to laugh and gestured his arms to the hoops. You can go for a fly for a bit if you want. I can see your wings are itching too. He pointed to Green's wings, which were in fact still twitching without his knowledge. Sucking in a breath, Green snapped his wings shut. Scar's smiling face morphed into thinly veiled confusion. He dropped his hand, tilting his head. Green threw him a slightly strained smile. No, thank you. I'm fine on the ground. I only fly when I need to, like in training or on patrol. I don't need to fly otherwise, so I stick to the ground. Scar's head somehow tilted even more, making him look like a puppy as his eyes went comedically wide as well. I didn't know avians could do that, he replies. I don't think that's healthy. Taking a deep breath, Green tries to settle down a bit, relaxing his wings slightly so they weren't so high-strung. giving the illusion of calm. It was his business and his business only, on why he still doesn't flaunt his wings around. A few years ago, there was an act signed that gave avians and other hybrids more equality in the city server, but there were still plenty of purists out there, and with Green's wing type, he has run into quite a few. No need to draw unwanted attention to yourself. It's just rude anyways, really. Don't worry about it, small guy. Why don't you just show me whichever section is yours? Green quipped, hoping to take the questions off him and just finish the tour. Small guy! And it worked. I'll have you know I am quite tall. Above average, some would say. Scar huffed, waving his hands around as he spoke. Green broke out into a genuine smile. He could at least say that his hero was good entertainment. Shaking his head, Scar turned on his heel, leading Green through the training room. Sometimes he'd stop or point out some other people's section, one of which was Tech's, which was just an empty room surrounded in glass. Hawkeye explained that it was blast and heat resistant, so he could practice whatever the blaze wished without fear of burning someone. He sped past Minos' area fast, as if the area scared him, which, to be fair, was justifiable. It was a grass field with what looked to be bones covering the ground. Feeling a shiver up his spine, Green chose to follow in Scar's footsteps and speed past the zombie hybrids training section. In complete opposite to Minos' area was Aphrodite's, fitting right next to Minos'. This was an open concept library. The whole area had bookshelves absolutely stacked with books. When asked, Scar said he wasn't super sure what Aphrodite was practicing by having the library, but whenever he was in his comfy-looking reading chair, Scar decided to stay away just in case. After a walk that seemed way too long, they arrived in the center of the whole building. Green was starting to rethink his wish not to fly around. Finally, Scar stopped in front of one of the large pillars holding up the roof. He turned to Green with a wide, real-looking smile, then gestured into the section-off area. Being the number one hero did seem to have its perks, as Scar's zone seemed to be at least a full baseball field. Each corner had a pillar with a tightrope stretched between them. At different levels, there were targets at differing sizes. Even the pillars themselves were painted with targets. Several of them had arrows sticking out of them, all bullseyes. Green's finger twitched to reach for his own bow that he left in his room. It looked to be an archer's dream. Usually he would just practice by flying around junkyards at night, and natural talents, he supposed. When he chose to become a vigilante a few years back, he figured that if Hawkeye could be that good with a bow, it must not be that hard. And he was right. As soon as he picked up the bow that he had found buried in the back of his closet, he had been a natural shot. Almost as good at accuracy as the hero himself. Not that he could ever get Hawkeye to admit that. Scar looked at Green with a smirk on his face. He threw his arms over his head with fake yawning. Yeah, I know. Pretty cool. Very big and awesome. Like me. He was flexing his arms and stomach in a way that he tried to make look natural. All it made Green do is want to throw up. Suddenly, a voice from behind Green, saving him from whatever. Suddenly, a voice spoke from behind Green, saving him from whatever this was. Birdie! Okay, maybe not save, but certainly anything is better than this. Green turned around with a confused gaze as he recognized the accented voice of the hypnosis-powered vigilante from yesterday. Not only him, though, as his sidekick XB trailed lazily by his side. Behind them, both an anxious-looking Queen of Hearts and rigid-looking Starvoid rushing up the catch up to the over-enthusiastic Swede. Finally finishing his fast-paced journey to Green, he pauses, panting slightly, but nonetheless opens his mouth to speak much too quickly for Green to catch anything he says. Seeing the blank look in his eyes, he takes a small huff of breath before starting over, much calmer and slower. Hi, Birdman. Long time no see. Feels like just yesterday that you said we were all going to be buddies, and look at us now! He smiles brightly. Green smiles back, though much smaller than the dark-haired man. Keralis, don't scare our poor co-worker, XB said, elbowing him in the side. Finally a name for the face. XB lifts his head a bit to look over at Green, for the first time smiling at him. Hey, listen, man. I know I was a bit cold to you yesterday, but thanks for believing in us, yeah? He takes his hand out of his pocket, extending to Green, who looks at it feeling a bit guilty. Was false encouragement that ended up working out still encouragement? He doesn't know, but he does know that these two remember him as a nice guy, and that makes him feel bad. Well, when in doubt, double down. Green raises his hand and takes XP's lightly. He smiles kindly, taking a step closer to them both. Of course, I may have to bail you guys out, but you guys have got something interesting. I'm glad you guys made it, and I look forward to working together in the future. When he releases XB's hand, he takes Keralis's, who ends up pulling him into a side hug, much to his surprise. The small squawk he let out was between him and the thin air alone. Finally, being released, he takes a step back, directly into Scar, who is standing way too close. Tripping over his foot, Green yelps as he overcorrects, nearly falling onto the ground. He snaps his wings out, trying to catch himself, which works, but also clocks Scar in the nose. Regaining his balance, he watches as Scar groans, holding his nose, his brain catching up to the events that just transpired. Green bursts out into a real loud laugh. Why were you so close? You deserve that so hard, oh my void. He doubled over, holding his stomach as he laughed. XB and Keralis both were trying to contain giggles, while Queen of Hearts and Starvoid were looking on with disappointed gazes. Though Green did notice a suspicious glint in Queen of Hearts' eyes that suggested maybe he agreed with their sentiment. A few of the other people training in the gym stopped to look at the group. Green stood up, wiping the tears from his eyes, still laughing. Yeah, that one was on me. Dang, you sure pack a punch with those. Maybe keep them behind you, huh? Scar joked while still rubbing his nose, which luckily wasn't bleeding or broken. And just like that, Green was no longer laughing. Right, keep his wings out of the way. You forgot. Sorry. I'll be better at keeping them out of the way, he says with a fake smile. He doesn't want to make a big deal about this and drop the mood. It's alright, he just forgot they were a bit annoying. Noticing the change in Green's demeanor, Scar goes to say something, but is quickly interrupted by the hyper Swede. Are you guys hungry? Because I know XP is. Right, XP? He asks, punching his friend in the shoulder. In return, his friend punches him right back, though he didn't seem to pull his punch as much as Keralis, giving the Swede's small ow, 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 while rubbing his shoulder. At the suggestion, Starvoid steps forward around the sleeper duo and beside Scar. He glances down at his wrist before looking down to Scar, who was still dramatically rubbing his nose. How far have you guys gotten in your tour? We can join our groups for brunch and continue from there if that would work for you guys. He offers. Green finds that a slightly anxiety-inducing scenario. Having Scar's intention was bad enough, but now more people and hanging out with Starvoid? He really didn't think this hero thing through. Sadly, Scar doesn't seem to pick up on Green's hesitation as his face lights up. That sounds like a fantastic idea! That way you can tell us how y'all know each other, and we can all get to know each other. Sounds good to me. We kind of already teamed up with X. The more the merrier. QOH added. Corellis fist pumped the air while XP watched him, huffing a laugh. Inclining his head, Green nodded along as if he was excited as well. Great! Off to the cafeteria! Scar chanted, marching off in the direction of the hallway they had entered from. They reached the elevator quicker than what Green felt like the first time. It was a bit of a tight squeeze getting all 6 of them into the elevator, but it was a short ride to just 1 floor above the main floor. Walking through the doors, Green got the impression that the level they just came from was for heroes only, because this place was packed. 3 of the walls were completely made of windows looking out onto the streets below. It was very bright with the early morning sun. Tables of different sizes filled with people in suits chatting with each other. Against the far wall was the wall where Green assumed the kitchen was, as there were several heated tables with different types of food. But the first thing that caught Green's attention when he stepped into the room was the smell. Now, maybe he was being dramatic, but it was the best smell he had smelled in a long time. The smell of real cooking with real ingredients and spices. It was possible that he was just way too used to making ramen every night for the last 3 years. But hey, being a vigilante didn't pay very well, or at all really, and odd jobs during the day didn't pay much either. He wrapped his hands around his growling stomach, hoping the group didn't hear him. Being broken from his hungry thoughts, Scar threw his arms out to the large chalkboard above the line of food. Ah, yes, it's hamburger day. Watch out, beef. Don't get too excited, Scar said, poking QOH in the side. His face screws up as his face goes slightly red. He scratches his beard while sighing. Seeing the newbie's confused glances, Queen of Hearts sighs louder as Scar laughs. Starvoid tilts his head to the side, crossing his arms. Green gets the impression he's putting on a disappointed stare. Listen, you forget the name of a hamburger 1 time and you never hear the end of it. He threw his hands up as if angry, but the smile on his face made Green think differently. You didn't just forget the name, Co. Starvoid started, pronouncing his name as Co, which Green supposed made sense as a nickname for Queen of Hearts. You stumbled so hard over the name, you just called it good time-tasting circular beef. And for that, you will never be forgiven. My real name is Vintage, but I'll never live down the nickname Beef. So call me what you like, I suppose, he clarified to the new sidekicks, leading the group to the start of the line, grabbing some food trays. So that would make you Vintage Beef, no? Corellis chimes in, smiling while assembling an honestly terrifying-looking burger. Beef's head slowly turned to look over at Corrales with faux horror in his face. "What have you done?" he breathed as Scar started cackling while leaning on Starvoid to hold himself up. Starvoid just letting it happen. Many people stopped eating, trying to look at the group. Both XB and Green just laughed softly, while Corrales looked proud of himself. "How have we never thought of that before?" Scar laughed. "You will never live this down, Vintage Beef," Starvoid added, spurring Scar on with more laughter. Green noticed that Starvoid wasn't grabbing anything to eat, while Scar's plate tilted precariously. Suddenly, 2 cards landed by Scar's and Starvoid's feet, wedged in the ground halfway. Scar only laughed harder, while Starvoid just looked at the card, shaking his head. Looking over to QOH, he looked as if he didn't do a thing, smiling while finishing off his burger. He was whistling a tune. Now it was Green's turn to laugh along with Corrales and XB. It seemed like both Starvoid and Scar were used to almost losing toe to cards, as they also seemed amused. Finally, Scar finished making his food before looking at Green with an odd look. He was picking around the food, looking for something he could actually eat. Being avian came with his own challenges, including certain foods he just couldn't eat. And while everything smelled amazing, and he was very hungry, he didn't feel like spending the night feeling completely awful. He came to the slightly sad conclusion that he should just stick with a salad this morning and stock more ramen that he knew he could eat in his room. But before he reached for the salad tongs, Scar nudged him, causing him to look up. "There's a hybrid safe table over there. There are 3 separate tables around here. One for everyone, one for restricted diets such as vegan or pescatarian, and also a hybrid safe table. We take hybrid safety seriously, even before the law was signed. They serve the same things over there as over here. Let me show you." He smiled as he started walking past the whole line of people. Surprisingly, XB followed them as well. "I didn't know you were a hybrid," Green voiced as they followed Scar. "Really? It plays into my power. I'm a guardian hybrid. That means I'm forcefully pescatarian." He smiles as they come to a stop before a buffet of food that looks similar to the last place they were, but with certain hybrids listed in front of the dishes naming which can eat which safely. Now that XB mentioned it, it made a lot of sense that he was a guardian hybrid. A lot of them were known to have the ability to slow people down when in water, along with a transformation that turned them into a mermaid-like creature when submerged in water. And while they usually had outward features such as fins and gills, XB having possibly none of them added to his powers, he supposed. Quick escape if he was near water, nobody suspecting he was a hybrid. Humming, Green started looking for avian-safe food, piling on his plate. After the 2 finished, Scar led them back to the others of the group, sitting at a table in the corner big enough to fit them all. All of them dug in. Well, all except Starvoid. After they were all done, they stayed seated, just talking for a few hours. Green learned the rest of the heroes' real names, like Minos being Cleo, Aphrodite being Joe Hills, and Tech just being just Tango. He didn't know exactly what he expected from the heroes, but being this normal wasn't it. When fighting on the streets, they always seemed stuck up and posh, following the rules, flashing smiles to the cameras, making boisterous statements that turned into clips on the internet later. He wouldn't say they are all completely nice to him. There were a few heads turned in the cafeteria when the ex-vigilantes walked by, But these heroes, the ones who gained a sidekick, were being very generous with their time. Green didn't know what to think. Every once in a while, he'd look at Starvoid, or Exuma, as he learned his name to be. It was traditional, apparently, for the type of hybrid he was. Something called a Voidwalker, but he explained no further what that entailed. Green had never heard of that species before, and judging by the look on Corellis and XB's faces, neither have they. Beef and Scar just continued off as if it was a normal emission, which for them it would be since they've known Exuma for so long. To see if he had any input into the conversation, but after learning his name, he seemed content to just watch the group talk. He sat in a straight posture, inclining his head to whoever was speaking at the moment, never adding his own words. That is until a quiet beep came from his suit, which it seemed only Green and him heard. Exuma raised his arms and looked to the inside of his wrist, using his other hand to swipe around as if he were using a communicator, which Green supposed wasn't a far-off guess as he let his arm drop, addressing the group. Scar, it seems you and Green have a meeting with your PR manager soon. He spoke to Scar alone. Green huffed at the act of being ignored. What? It's not even... He pulled out his own communicator, then balked at the time. It's 2 o'clock! We've been hanging for like 3 hours here! Scar shoved his comm back into his pocket, grabbed both his and Green's trays. Green watched as he tossed them 30 feet away, where they landed directly on the stack of dirty trays perfectly, surprising everyone except Exuma. We gotta go, guys! Cub's gonna be pissed. He mumbled the last bit as the group recovered from the impossible aim. Then they started laughing as he bent down, grabbing Green's hand and bucking it to the door. Green could barely keep his feet under himself as he tried to pull his arm away, but it was like fighting a cement wall. He wasn't going anywhere. When they finally reached the inside of the elevator, his face was beet red from exertion, and his wings were raised as if trying to make himself bigger. Scar dropped his hand, snickering, while Green tried to catch his breath. He noticed that Scar didn't even look like he was winded. Never do that again! He shouted, attempting to smooth his feathers out. Scar ignored him, pressing one of the many buttons before once again using his thumb to scan before the elevator started moving. Sorry, not sorry, Birdie. We got places to be. He chuckled at Green. Not very becoming to be late on your first day. He leaned against the wall, smiling at Green. It's not my fault you can't tell time, he chirped. Walking up to Scar, placing his finger against his chest, purposefully measuring his breath, pretending he wasn't still out of breath. Well, I'm always late, 'cause I can be. I'm helping you, J-Man. You are so annoying. Yeah, you love me. You wish, I just met you. Don't be like that. We've been nemesis for years. You wish you were my nemesis. Well, at first, Green was upset. It was now getting increasingly harder to hide a smile at such a dumb argument. He really didn't care about being forced to run like that. If anything, it was pretty fun trying to keep up. The two were so wrapped up in their squabble that they didn't notice when the doors finally opened, nor did they notice the stout man standing there with a clipboard, an exasperated look on his face. He was tapping his pen on the clipboard, just waiting to be noticed, which he quickly realized wasn't going to happen when the two men started to catfight. So he drew out a long sigh before loudly clearing his throat. Both Green and Scar stopped where they were, hands wrapped around each other, trying to strong-arm the other. They shared a glance before letting go, stopping to look up at Cub, who just sighed again. I have to deal with another one. Great, he said to himself. Follow me, please. He looked back down at his papers, turning a few over, then writing on a few more. Scar followed him into the office first, followed by Green. It looked like a normal office one would expect from a public relations worker for the Hero Association. Very high floor level, made of mostly windows that looked over the city dramatically, and a sleek desk in the center. But when Green walked up to Scar's side, he saw a few things that truly stood out. Namely, the 20 or so outfits floating around the room in various states of completion. They had a faint blue glowing aura around them, hovering up and down slightly. Sewing supplies were strewn around the room, and over every available surface. A few of those floating as well. A thimble floats past his eyeline, and he follows it with his head as it passes. Scar leans down as he does so. That's Cub's power. He's a Vex hybrid with small level telekinesis, but he mostly uses it for sewing, he says, poking the thimble as it passes him too. Cub was in the center of it all, also with the thin blue aura around himself. For the first time since Green had met him, he put the clipboard down. Alright, Green, was it? Most of the outfits you'll be wearing from here on out have already been sent to your room. Along with those are your mandatory respawn bracelet and identification badges. I have not, however, sent your true hero outfit as it's not finished yet. But here's the concept. As he spoke, he gathered a few of the outfits out of the air, laying them over a chair behind the desk. Green was starting to get a little nervous. Each outfit he was seeing was very pink, which isn't really an issue. It's his favorite color, so really that's a win. The issue was most of these outfits were very dressy. No loungewear in sight. He looked over to Scar, who seemed just as confused while looking around the room. God, what is all this? Isn't he just supposed to be a normal sidekick? He doesn't need all this gear, he asked, pointing to the stuff on the desk that Green didn't even notice. It had weapons on it. Again, all either pink, red, or orange, though some had blue as well. There were some knives longer than Green's forearm, smaller bows that could pass as a slingshot, honestly, and a few utility belts with weapons he doesn't even recognize. Normally, yes, sidekicks are given the basic essentials until they can get contracted as a hero. But he is different. He grabs a shirt, then turns to Green, who straightens up nervously. Green turns the garments back, looking at the wing holes. He is your sidekick. His eyes flick up to Scar. He's Hawkeye's sidekick. I don't know if you realize what we got here, Scar, but this is a gold mine for the Hero Association and you, too. You are already the most famous and successful hero, and now you have a sidekick. He has to be just as marketable as you. Yes, I know that, but what does that have to do with the discount Hawkeye outfits? He pulls one of the shirts out of the air, and now that he mentions it, Green sees how similar it is to Hawkeye's signature outfit. Cub sighs, getting down the shirt he had. Waving his hand, two of the mannequins from the corner of the room fly over to rest in the center. The taller one has Hawkeye's current superhero outfit, with a few tweaks to it, such as a few pink details that used to be black around the waist. But the shorter mannequin showed off a superhero outfit that had motifs of Hawkeye while being different. Like that fact, while Hawkeye's is mostly black, this is mostly white. It was sleeveless, tied around the neck with a bow in the back. There were white fingerless gloves stretching up past the elbow and halfway to the shoulder. These also had bows. A pair of high-waisted baggy pants cinched around the calves, much like Hawkeye's. Yet these were set over a pair of orange fishnet tights. A belt held them above the hips, and a heart-shaped belt buckle with the blue and orange of Hawkeye, while white combat boots tied to look together. White combat boots tied to look together, laced up with orange and pink laces. Stretching on the head was a pair of pink sunglasses, heart-shaped. And to finish off the look, there in the center of the shirt was a rounded-off version of Hawkeye's logo. It almost looked like a heart. Scar's jaw dropped as he stared at the knockoff Hawkeye outfit. While it did look different, the similarities were not lost on any of them. "What is this?" he shouted, throwing his hands out. Green just stared wide-eyed at it. He felt his heart start to speed up. He was really starting to feel a bit like he bit off more than he could chew. It was a great outfit, very much something he would wear, but this all was moving a lot faster than he expected. It's the new uniform for the famous hero Hawkeye's new sidekick. It's for the sidekick cute guy. He smiled cheekily while the shorter mannequin flew to his side. If you are worried about him getting cold, I'm working on a sweater for him. A pile of bulky fabric lifted from the desk, settling over the mannequin's shoulders, then slipped off. And off the shoulder, oversized, half pink, half blue cardigan was wrapped around the outfit. It had heart-shaped buttons around the waist. "I'm not worried about him getting cold," Scar shouted, sounding almost hysterical. "You steal my brand for this brand new sidekick that I didn't even want, and then you take my name too? Cute guy! What kind of name is that, Cub?" Green watched as Scar yelled at Cub, who was just watching him with lazy eyes. With an exhale, Cub pinches the bridge of his nose while grabs his clipboard before walking up to Green. But before he even gets there, Scar blocks him, stepping in front of Green. "Seriously, Cub, don't ignore me!" Whatever Scar and Cub exchanged, Green couldn't hear. He was thinking very loudly to himself. He fucked up. The whole day was starting to crash down on him. He really did this. He's a hero now, and he's got to uphold all the hero look and rules. He went from fighting heroes for fun last week to now sitting and having brunch with them. He knew their names. He's Hawkeye's sidekick. They were literally play fighting like 20 minutes ago. Green could feel his wings wrapping around his shoulders, trying to calm himself down. His breathing was getting quicker and quicker as his eyes scanned the roof for a place to hide. When that was a bust, he started to slowly back up to the door, hoping that neither of the men in the room would notice. And while he wasn't noticed, he didn't make it to the door before he was addressed. "Scar, leave it be. This was a direct order from higher than you or me. He will be just as popular as you, whether you like it or not. Now, Green." He pushed Scar to the side, who just crossed his arms and huffed at the dismissal. "Here's a packet of approved makeup looks you will be required to wear when seen in public, with Hawkeye as cute guy. There are also some pictures as well as all the required makeup to produce these looks have been sent to your room. One last thing, I need to measure your wings one last time for a better quiver for you." Not noticing Green's uncharacteristic silence, he slipped behind Green before he could even protest. Now, Green wasn't sure how much the people around here knew about avian hybrids, but he was going on a limb and say Cub didn't know much. Green had his wings curled around himself in what he thought was an obvious sign of stress. Catching eyes with Scar, Green saw his eyes go from pissed off to widening with shock. Cub, wait! He started too late. Kel placed a hand in the center of Green's back, holding up a measuring tape, unaware of his turmoil. Immediately, Green's eyes dilated. He squawked, jumping away from Cub, chittering angrily. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't breathe. Too much. It's all too much. He backed up into the corner of the room, knocking over several mannequins in his effort to get further away, though still trying to keep an eye on both Cub and Scar. All he could hear was the blood in his ears and his own distressed coos. He kept scanning the room for an escape, while Scar pulled Cub to the front of the office, away from Green. He thinks he can maybe see Scar's mouth moving and saying something, but he doesn't understand. He wants out. Finally, he spots it. A singular open window, directly behind the desk. Perfect! Beelining for the window. He hears someone shout, only spurring him on more. His claws push open the window harshly until it is wide as it will go. Then he jumps through with minimal effort. He feels the air whip past his face as he plummets to the ground below. He flares his wings out, catching the wind, and flinging himself up past the window. He just jumped out of. He can't hear, but at least now it's because of the wind rushing past him. He circles the building until he sees what has to be Scar's balcony, since it has broken down targets piled on it. He goes to the opposite side, knowing it's his room, and lands on the balcony. When he opens the door, he knows it's his room by the stack of boxes by the front door, overflowing with white and pink cloths. Clothes. He doesn't want to think about all of that right now. It's too much. He makes a beeline for his room, taking all the blankets and pillows he passes on the way there. He rearranges them in the corner of the room furthest from the door. All the while he's chirping in distress, calling for people he hasn't seen in over 3 years. He upturns the box of sentimentals he brought from his apartment, taking the stuffed pigeon his sister got him, and curls up in the very nest-like bed in the corner. He feels a few tears come to his eyes. His breathing had gotten a bit better now that he was alone in a nest. He missed his flock. He hadn't needed them in years. So busy trying to find him that he didn't even have time to grieve. He takes a deep breath to calm himself further. He certainly bit off too much for himself. It's only day 1 and he has a panic attack because of all the things they expect of him. Not only is he expected to do all this hero business like Hawkeye, but he also has to get the information he needs about his flock too. He coos sadly at the thought, gripping Moon closer. He will get his flock back if it kills him. Mumbo deserves it, as does Impulse, and certainly his own sister. But this is turning out to be much harder than he thought it was going to be. Stupid bird. He really didn't plan this whole scheme very well. And for that, he's paying the price. Green falls asleep, feeling a single tear slide down his cheek and on into the pillow. He dreams of his flock and the day he realized they were missing, tossing and turning as the afternoon turns to night. And that is the end of chapter 5.